I thought Neverwinter Nights 2 holds no secrets before me after 3 cut content videos, but I was wrong. Turned out there were still many things I didn't know about cut from the game, and in Act 1 no less, which is already big. So without further ado, let's have another look at what could have been in Neverwinter Nights 2. I'm going to start with the biggest discovery, a cut companion called Khelgar. He was most likely a barbarian, as it was the only base game class without a joinable NPC representation. And the name seems to fit a barbarian too. Khelgar is mentioned by name in only one script though, so he must have been cut very early on. My theory is that he was an off-guard barbarian. After all, they were active in different parts of the region, and as you know from my previous cut content videos, we would have been able to forge an alliance with the Elk tribe. However, he also could have been a half-orc who aren't uncommon in the north in general. For example, there was Dalen Red Tiger in the original Neverwinter Nights. Another reason why I'm starting with this is to mention Erfu, one of my viewers. He diligently dug through the game files and shared his discoveries with me, inspiring the making of this video. Most of what you'll see is thanks to his great leads. So a big round of applause for Erfu, and now let's go back to the beginning. To be exact, to the character creation screen. For starters, there used to be the Ghostwise halfling subrace in the game, but it's currently disabled. As for the skills, the game had animal empathy at some point, which was then cut and replaced with a character class check. There was also discipline, which likely worked like it did in the original Neverwinter Nights, and ride. The last one is obviously useless unless you wanted to charge the Githyanki on Louis Jones's hog or something. You could also pick a history trait called Complex, which gave you a free skill focus feat. In case you forgot, skill focus gives you a +3 bonus to checks for a given skill. The description was pretty funny. Quote, "Like most people, there are many facets to your personality, no single thing defines you," unquote. Right, that's why you chose to focus on this one particular skill in your life. Finally, we're jumping forward a bit, but there used to be more prestige classes. To be precise, Cavalier, Contemplative, and Mystic Theurge didn't make the cut. The last one was restored in the Spell Fixes and Improvements mod though. Having our characters created, let's move on to West Harbor, the place where it all began. Judging by several scripts and dialogues, it appears the village originally had a different layout or at least different NPC placement. For example, you could talk to the NPCs connected to the Harvest Fair challenges before signing up for the competition. However, it's impossible to do so now as crossing the bridge triggers a conversation with Georg, and from there on, you're considered signed up. Fast forward to the end of the fair, there used to be a short cutscene that foreshadowed the attack on West Harbor. When Georg makes the final speech and the crowd cheers for us, we would see cowled figures off in the distance. Here's their conversation.
"A strange place for the blade. Nevertheless, I sense it is here. Wait until nightfall. Then we reclaim what is ours."
While the creatures in the module are generic Githyanki placeholders, they are named cowled figures. This suggests their appearance was originally more mysterious. They would also appear in later cutscenes, but we'll get to that in a minute. The way the game shipped, we know right away the attack was led by a Githyanki mage. Come the night, West Harbor is attacked. What we got in the final game is a significantly shortened version of the raid though. First off, the attackers used to have searching behaviors. For example, the Duergar at Dagon's house would be rummaging through the place. They would also bark orders to keep searching at one another. Still, this is nothing compared to the mayhem that would be happening outside. Now, I'm not necessarily saying it used to be better, because I have a feeling most of the changes were made to improve the pacing. First off, the NPC placement was definitely different. It was possible to talk to Georg before meeting Brother Mering. And there's more. According to the dialogue file, we were supposed to find 10 militiamen for Georg. At the moment, the minimum is 5, the maximum is 8. As we moved into the village and crossed the bridge, we would get 2 mutually exclusive quests. We were either to help Orlan save his burning barn, or help a guy named Bluth save his family's silver. What's important, Bluth was one of the extra militiamen, as his description says. Speaking of people protecting their belongings, here's an interesting thing. If you looted the villagers' homes, your alignment would shift towards chaotic evil. It's a fantastic idea in my opinion, because you have to be a piece of shit to steal from thy neighbor, especially in such a situation. But let's be real, if CRPGs had this sort of morality police scripts, all heroes would be chaotic evil. This isn't the worst though. When we go to the Starling house to save Bevel's siblings, we could freely explore the ground level and loot the place. However, if we did that, there was a script that killed Bevel's family upstairs, on top of giving us chaotic evil alignment shift. Again, it's understandable morality-wise, but probably too harsh in a CRPG. Starling House also proves West Harbor used to be bigger in a sense that it had more locations. There are several missing area numbers in the module, so I assume at least several places were scrapped, likely to reduce the number of loading screens, and let me tell you, those really were a bitch on the hardware we played this game on back in the day. Another interesting difference is found in Tarmas' house. In it, we could set our weapons on fire using his alchemist bench to deal more damage. There was also a chest with alchemical fire vials and a dialogue that explained how to use them in combat. Interestingly, Amie would still be with us at that point. Her dialogue reveals that Tarmas was nowhere to be found around his house and that he would never leave it unguarded like that. This right here is another proof that at least the NPC placement was different. As for Amie's death, she is killed off way earlier in the final game. Given that she has voiceover for gathering all militiamen, I think she originally died at the wheat fields.
We've gotten everyone we could find. Let's head to the southwest wheat field.
This is probably where we would meet Tarmas too. This way it would make more sense for him to tell us his house is to the north. As it is in the OC, he's dueling the Githyanki mage right outside. Why not just point at it? Or better yet, why not just go in yourself and pick up what you need? At any rate, he would buff the party with magic weapon before sending us off. As far as I'm concerned, all of these little things confirm that West Harbor had a different layout and was probably bigger. Finally, there's an interesting note that Chris Avalon left in the dialogue file. It's about asking Orlan after the attack how are his fields. Quote, Ferret wants to hint at the blight of the King of Shadows causing the bad farming season. He'd also like to link the attack to the blight, but I have failed to come up with a way to link them. Unquote. In case you're wondering, Chris Avalon is one of the co-founders of Obsidian Entertainment, and he most famously was the lead designer of Planescape Torment. The late Ferret, on the other hand, was the original lead designer of Neverwinter Nights 2. He quit in March 2006 though, and was then replaced by Josh Sawyer, known for being the lead designer of the Pillars of Eternity series. Moving on, after the attack, Dagon sends us to the swamps to get the Silver Shard. This area and the connected scripts and dialogues reveal a couple of interesting things about game systems, among other things. In the swamps, we would encounter a wolf that we could approach without it becoming hostile if we played a druid or a ranger. It appears the beast could also join the party temporarily. This is likely one of the encounters where animal empathy would have been used if it hadn't been deleted. Another interesting things are the placeable tracks in the area. This is speculation, but it seems we were meant to see actual tracks and perhaps make some skill checks to determine who or what left them. Whether it was part of the final tracking system or something that was replaced by it, I have no clue. Similarly, inside the swamp ruins, we would see a floating text hint if we passed a listen check. We would hear the lizardmen talk from behind the ritual chamber door, but for some reason this part of the script was commented out. Speaking of lizardlings, another script revealed it was possible to talk to the guards in front of the ruins. If we went the diplomatic route, they would take us to the ritual chamber, apparently skipping the entire swamp ruins dungeon. In the end though, we can only skip the fight in the ritual chamber itself, which is not profitable anyway. Remember, Neverwinter Nights 2 favors murder hobos. This isn't everything though. Unused Bevel's voice files reveal that there likely were secret doors in the game at some point, probably discovered with spot checks or something like that, as opposed to being hidden behind a bookcase for instance. Moreover, these voice files also hint at a classic rest system being present in the game at some point. Let's have a listen.
We might want to camp here before we go inside the ruins. There's going to be more of the lizardlings around. This room looks like it hasn't been visited in years. The whole ruins has been picked through so many times. I'm amazed no one has found it before us. If we shut the door, we could rest here safely, I wager.
I even found some early unused resting scripts. While they don't tell us that much, they did have a fade out, fade in effect, resting animation for the party and a message that we successfully rested. So it bears a striking resemblance to how resting works in Mask of the Betrayer. There's also camp in the script name, so maybe it originally was about making an actual camp. After we've left West Harbor area, the original campaign successfully creates a feeling of being haunted. But it turns out it's toned down very much in the game Obsidian actually gave us. Once we've left the Weeping Willow Inn with Khelgar, there used to be another cutscene with the cowled figure whose identity was still kept a secret. They would be accompanied by a bunch of deep gnomes and reveal they are working for Zieri. In the original campaign as it stands, we just see her in a cutscene without any foreshadowing. Furthermore, I think the cowled figure would be the first to refer to the player character as Kalak Cha. After leaving the Weeping Willow Inn, we head to the next area, Fort Locke. On our way to the fort itself, we can help Galen, a merchant being attacked by his own bodyguards. Unlike in the final game, it seems we were also meant to escort him all the way to the fort. But it appears it might not have been a walk in the park. Remember Jared Widowmaker from my first cut content video? He's still in the game files with his own area and everything else. So here's a fun theory. There is Jared's waypoint at Fort Locke, very close to the path leading to the fort. It's not unlikely that he was supposed to try to rob us there at some point in development. At least before he was moved to his own area. I don't think Khelgar would let him leave alive though, and then a robbery this close to the fort seems like a little too much. Or is it? After all, on our way to Fort Locke, we meet Neeshka during a cutscene where soldiers are harassing her. Originally, they were supposed to be bandits though, but in all likelihood, the cutscene wasn't meant to happen right in front of the fort. And who knows, maybe Jared's waypoint is a remnant of the original cutscene with bandits. The soldiers in the final game are after bounties. At some point in production, the fort's commander was actually supposed to pay us bounties for lizardmen hides and bandit sashes. And finally, it looks like the Church of Ilmater initially had its own area and was located outside Fort Locke. Or Tormillos would have been ambushed somewhere else in the area. There is a script that checks if the bandits extorting the priest are dead, and I really doubt they just walked into the fort and started shaking down a priest of one of the most beloved deities in the Forgotten Realms. And that's quite a lot of criminal activity, by the way. You'd almost think you're safer in the swamps. Moving on our way to the next destination, Highcliff, we are ambushed by Githyanki minions. Originally, this was supposed to be the third ambush, during which Elanee would finally reveal herself. This is based mostly on existing dialogue, but there are some script leftovers to back this up. First off, when Elanee meets us, she says she's sure we're growing as tired of these attacks as she is. Attacks, plural. Later on, we can ask her if she was the one responsible for the badger and rooting our enemies in place. Neither happened as a plot event, but we are definitely referring to deleted ambushes. So, the first time, Elanee would only cast Entangle from hiding. The second time, she would send a badger. The third time was close to the version the game shipped with. She would entangle some minions and attack the rest from the rear accompanied by a wolf. Another minor detail, the blade link says, "No place to run this time, Kalak Cha." This time implies there were other times, but in the release build, this is the first targeted attack at us. Moreover, this is the first time the player character is referred to as Kalak Cha. Elanee, on the other hand, says they keep calling the protagonist that. Numerous instances. Unless she meant eavesdropping on them. What's that? I'm overanalyzing? Oh. Overanalysis and unpopular opinions are the entire point of this channel. But in all seriousness, Obsidian did not tie all loose ends when making changes and cuts. They left bits and pieces that reveal how things were previously. The dialogue file sometimes points to those things with invisible comments. They usually serve as tips for the voice actors, and such a comment led me to one of the biggest discoveries about Elanee's backstory. When Khelgar calls Elanee a tree worshipper, the invisible comment says that her entire band of druids was slaughtered. Now, this happens early in Act 1, so there is no way it referred to the Circle of the Mare going crazy in Act 3. Furthermore, when asked about the Circle later, Elanee will always say that she doesn't want to talk about it. The invisible VO tip says that it's painful for her as she remembers her dead brothers and sisters. I think there used to be an influence score check that could lead to the alternate unused answer. She would say with a sigh that
The circle of druids within the mare have passed on, yet it was not their season. Something has struck them, both among the lizardmen and the other peoples alike.
The wording is pretty confusing, but I think she refers to the blight spreading through the mare of dead men. Like the same blight Orlan talks about with Georg at the beginning of the tutorial, and the same blight that corrupts the lizard folk leader in Act 3. Whatever it was, it definitely is a remnant of a different backstory and a subplot. It obviously talks about the circle being killed in action. Anyway, with Elanee on board, the party then goes to Highcliff. There was supposed to be another cutscene. This time, Khelgar wanted Neeshka out of the party. The conversation is pretty big and we could either escalate or de-escalate the conflict, or be an asshole to everyone. Still, as with everything else in the original campaign, no matter what you would do, the result would be the same.
Well, I guess this is where we part ways, Tiefling. Good luck to you.
What are you talking about? I'm not going anywhere.
Look, we helped you out at Fort Locke, even let you share in some of the loot, but we're not your sitters. You can go about your business here in Highcliff without us doing whatever it is your kind does.
My kind? And last I heard, you weren't in charge, Khelgar, so don't start giving me orders.
She's a thief, and we don't need that kind of trouble around us, especially not in any village or town we come to.
Trouble? I attract trouble? At least I know how to avoid a brawl instead of picking a fight with everyone who crosses my path.
Are they always like this? It's tiresome just to watch.
It's not my fault. Khelgar started it, as usual, which seems to happen whenever he opens his mouth. I mean, I've been helpful, haven't I? I know you don't know me very well, but I've had your back in fights.
What? You had me worried there for a moment. You're having some fun with me, are you?
You don't want me around? But Gods! I thought you at least trusted me a little.
Be reasonable now. You've got a good heart, and I respect that, but trusting someone like her, you're just asking for trouble.
Look, everyone, let's just stick together until we're out of danger. We need every blade we can get.
And who asked you?
Yeah? You just show up and suddenly you're barking orders too?
We all share the same enemy. Until that enemy is dealt with, we are stronger together.
It's not my fault this started. The tiefling's the one to blame.
Ha! Guess you're stuck with me, short and hairy. Sorry.
Once we've had that settled and went to Highcliff proper, we could actually enter the tavern. The drunken sailors who pick on us outside were a part of a cutscene in which we walked into said establishment. Also, when Captain Flynn says harbormen smell of peat moss, Elanee defends us saying that she thinks peat moss smells nice, surely better than the inside of a village tavern. This is a strong hint that the conversation was happening inside rather than outside. On top of that, after the brawl, Khelgar says we should find another tavern. He might be a connoisseur of being thrown out, but you have to go in first to be thrown out. Our next stop is Shandra's farm. In a deleted cutscene when we entered the area, we'd witness her kill a zombie with a pitchfork, if you can kill what's already dead. Moments later, we would be attacked by Githyanki minions, deep gnomes in this case. Their mage would cast a fireball that would miss us and Shandra and hit the barn, setting it aflame. Obviously this was scrapped and replaced with a lizardman sneak attack, probably to involve them more in the Highcliff subplot. Now, we're making a bit of a leap in the story, at least in the final one. It seems Githyanki attacks on our party would continue throughout the entire Act 1, but things get very confusing at this point. I assume the story was changing quickly, parts of it were being changed or removed, but here's what I pieced together. Upon arrival in Neverwinter, we would have been attacked by Githyanki pawns again. While it does happen in the docks, it's just a random fight. Originally, it was supposed to be a cutscene with bladelings that ambush us. What happens next is just described in Chris Avalon's notes. Neeshka would accuse the Highcliff townsfolk of ratting us out. Elanee would defend them and theorize it's the shard we carry that gives up our position. Khelgar, of course, would be happy to see more attacks, the moron. Neeshka would then suggest we should get rid of the shard, but Elanee would somehow convince everyone to keep it. At which point Chris Avalon noted, "I don't know where to go from here." This is when things absolutely stop making sense and there seems to be no continuity between them. But bear with me. There are 2 cutscenes left in the game files. One takes place before we get to the Sword Mountains, or Old Owl Well, and the second takes place after we've met Cassavir. It's also reasonable to assume the other events they depend on aren't the same as in the final game. At any rate, while in the Sword Mountains, so after we've been to Old Owl Well, we would get ambushed by the Githyanki. However, this time around, the minions would have been led by an actual Githyanki, likely one of the cowled figures from the earlier cutscenes. Before the attack, the Githyanki would talk among themselves and mention Zieri for the second time. It's actually possible the leader of the ambush was the mage who killed Amie in West Harbor, but if so, the game assumes we can't tell one Githyanki from another, which might be the case.
I must report to Zieri. The Kalakchas in the Sword Mountains. You will personally lead this attack. Our quarry shall not escape again. Attack! Destroy the Kalakcha!
After the fight, our party would study the corpse of the Githyanki and wonder what the hell just attacked them. We could tell our companions that a creature like that killed Amie in West Harbor. The cutscene is fully voiced and has comments of all the party members we might have at that point, so let's hear an example conversation.
What in the 9 hells was that thing that was leading them? It was too ugly to be a goblin, and that's saying something.
Whatever that thing was, it wasn't something from around here, or the lower plains. It didn't seem like it belonged here.
Neeshka speaks true. It was evil, but it did not have the feel of the infernal about it. An outsider, yes, but not demonic.
The way this thing moved, it was familiar somehow. The pattern of its movements, the way it walked. It was one of several of the beasts who were stalking you since West Harbor. It was also a pack leader. These bladelings and dark dwarves obeyed it without question, and it has a curious smell about it, almost metallic, yet I can't place the scent. Wherever they are from, it's not any place in Faerun that I know of. I am sorry for your loss. It looks like they mean to end your life as well.
Look, I don't feel too comfortable just standing around and talking about this. We should move on before more of these things show up. If they aren't following us already.
Sadly, this ambush was removed, and so we are sent by the City Watch or the Shadow Thieves straight into the Githyanki hideout in Neverwinter. Interestingly, in the final game, Neeshka can be asked about Githyanki and she shares some knowledge about them. But this isn't everything. There's another deleted cutscene related to Githyanki ambushes, although this one clearly happens on our way to Old Owl Well. It probably was deleted early because it isn't voiced over. The cutscene starts with Neeshka saying, "Didn't we just take care of these things back in Neverwinter? How many of them are there?" Here, I'd say she was referencing the deleted Bladeling ambush in Neverwinter. However, the hidden comment says just got attacked by another group of inhuman assassins, so it could be they meant actual Githyanki. There are also some event checks involved here, so the cutscene probably only fired up under certain circumstances. The game also flagged the ambush so that another post-ambush scene wouldn't play. Quest order might have something to do with it, especially if you consider the COD Neverwinter Wood module. Unsurprisingly, if Elanee is in the party, Neeshka, clearly not an Einstein, proceeds to accuse her of being Githyanki's target, or in other words, the reason why we keep getting attacked. If we play a male character, she's obviously super jealous if we dare doubt her, let alone side with Elanee. Of course, an argument ensues, and hold on to your chairs, this one is good. Khelgar, of all people, is the one who breaks it up. Alright, let's jump ahead again, this time to our second visit to Shandra's farm. It appears there used to be a cellar in her house with a secret underground tunnel. Judging by the developer comments, one scenario was to probably follow Shandra into the cellar and then find the secret exit on our own. Then, the cellar was scrapped and Shandra was supposed to lead us to the secret tunnel. Ultimately, none of that made into the game and we exit right into awaiting Gityhanki. Well, you can't be ambushed when you're walking into an ambush willingly. CRPG problems require CRPG solutions. Fast forward to Chandra's kidnapping. Our rescue mission was originally longer as there were 3 extra areas in our path. One of them was Luskan border that Bishop still talks about in the game. There, we would apparently run into Luskan soldiers who would attack on sight. In the original campaign as it shipped, we moved straight into Ember when the Githyanki ambush us. There's even a dialogue file for Ember villagers reacting when you try opening their homes. Originally, however, the ambush was supposed to happen in the next area, which was deleted, probably for pacing. Later on, at the Githyanki cave approach, Bishop would apparently try to leave the party. How we stopped him, we don't know, but we can imagine. By the way, Bishop reminds me of Billy Butcher from The Boys. It all clicked together when I read Bishop's dialogue with Billy's voice in my head. If you just added some C words and the accent, it would be difficult to tell the difference. Well, we're almost at the end of Act 1. This one last thing I want to talk about is a stretch, but I like to believe things are there for a reason. If you consider all the bits and pieces, I wouldn't rule out further Githyanki involvement in the campaign. You see, Zieri seems like a rogue agent, hoping to overthrow Vlakith, the Lich Queen. It takes a successful taunt check or Neeshka in your party, but Zieri can be brought to spill her guts, partially. She clearly knows, unlike us at that point, that we hold the shards of not just any Githyanki silver sword, but the silver sword of Gith, the most holy relic of the Githyanki. To wield it certainly carries a lot of weight, especially if you want to overthrow the Lich Queen. A subtle hint at this is in the dialogue file. Unfortunately, the voice actor did a half-assed job here. You see, the VO tip says that Zieri says Lich Queen with obvious distaste.
Among the Githyanki, none but the Lich Queen have more authority than I.
Moreover, there are some unused Githyanki and possibly Githzerai character models in the game files. One of them is a named NPC called Tenavrok. Whether he's a Githyanki or Githzerai though, I have no idea. It also sucks that we never got to avenge Amie by killing the Githyanki mage Tarmas fought. Who knows, maybe we were meant to in one of the cut ambushes. As of patch 1.23, Amie's killer just vanishes from the campaign, while the other minion of Zieri is given way more attention and screen time for some inexplicable reason. Not to mention that there's definitely something off with his gender, voice and character model, like there was some huge mix-up with the Githyanki NPCs. Finally, I believe something big was cut because of the cleric who shall remain nameless since I can't pronounce her name for anything. She just pops out of nowhere and magically she has all the answers. Almost as if she was created to bridge a gap in the campaign because the deadline was on the horizon and the game was nowhere near ready. But what do you think? Was Act 1 the beginning and the true end of the Githyanki subplot? Was their involvement really meant to end with Zieri's death? I'd love to read your thoughts down in the comments on the Githyanki business and everything else. And that's it for this video. The good news is, there is more Neverwinter Nights 2 content coming, and I'm already working on the next cut content video. I also have content for other CRPGs planned, so subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss anything. In the meantime, it's back to the game files for me. I've already dug up some promising things, and there is definitely more I have to dig up yet.